Hey everybody, welcome back to Sounds Like a Drum, Cadence Independent Media Production. Today, we've been looking forward to this. Ultimate guide, deep dive, tom intervals between the batter and reso. What do they sound like? We're going all in on this today. All right, this is going to be an extra nerdy one. We put a lot of work into this one today. It was more challenging than expected. We've all learned a lot here. And before we dive in, we just want to talk about exactly what is happening in the demonstration today so that everybody's on the same page. What we're going after today is maintaining the overall pitch of the rack tom and the floor tom throughout all of the demonstrations while changing the interval between the batter head and the reso. What this means for us is that we're going to start with the same pitch, same tension on batter and reso, and through the demonstration we're going to raise the tension on the reso head and lower the tension on the batter, thus creating a difference in interval between the two but maintaining the same overall pitch of the drum. For this today, we want to have as little variable as possible, so we're using clear G1s on top and bottom, brand new, straight out of the box, and this is going to give us a really clear idea of attack, decay, resonance, all of those things. Now, there's a reason why we're doing this, and it's because there's a real kind of constant argument on the internet about what the right interval is for a certain sound between the batter and reso on not just toms, but everything on the whole kit. And the fact of the matter is that they all sound different, and none of them are necessarily bad. This is less about right and wrong, and more about the character that you're looking for to get out of your drums. First up is a back-to-back comparison of all of the intervals that we're going through today. This is going to be subtle at times, so this is a time for headphones, as good of a listening environment as you can possibly have, and really listen to the character of the sound of the drum as it changes throughout all of the intervals. We're going to start off today with the higher of the two toms. It's a 13/9. Here we go. Now we're going to move to the floor tom. It is 16/16. Now for a little back-to-back context demo. Okay, like we said up front, this was a lot of work, and that's a lot of information to take in. And the first thing that we would like to say is, again, this is not about right and wrong. This is about, we have drums with two heads on them, and the interval between those two heads changes the behavior of the drum. It's not just about tensioning one of them to get a certain sound and adjusting the other one. There's all of this opportunity to manipulate the behavior and the decay of the drum just through tuning if we have a little bit of an idea of what these intervals are going to get us. So now that we've heard all of this, what do we do with it? Well, what we do with it here is we think about intervals and tensions in this way so that we can manipulate the sound of wide open drums in this particular space, and then if we find ourselves in a different space, have some ideas about what we can do to make our drums behave the way we need in those spaces. If you're practicing in a practice space with carpet on the walls and things like that, your drums are going to give you a very different experience than if you then go and do like a restaurant gig where there's a lot of glass and brick everywhere. And having a sense of what tensions and intervals as they work together can get us out of the drum set that we're using, suddenly we have all of this opportunity to manipulate the sound on the fly as we need and get more options out of a single set of drums too. A comment, or well, not comment, but a question that we get an awful lot is, I have this drum, super specific, certain drum, what's the best tuning for it? This brought to mind for Ben a old adage about cameras, which is, what is the best camera? It's the one you have with you when you need to take a picture of something. So similarly, the best tuning for the drum is the one that you need that day. It doesn't really matter what the drum is. It doesn't really even matter what the heads are in this context. What we're saying is that in the same way that we tune maybe a snare drum several different ways in a video when we're demoing that drum, there's options. There isn't a best, there isn't a worst. There's, is it doing what you need, or do you need to make an adjustment? We've also recently been talking about how much advertising and subtle details of certain drums will take us down a rabbit hole of thinking that we need to do a certain thing with them, and in this case, tune them differently. And the fact of the matter is, there isn't a different tuning for a maple drum than for a metal drum or a birch drum. At the end of the day, it's just about making sure that you like the sound you're getting out of the instrument. Skip over that whole thing where you feel like there's a right and wrong before you even get started. We're also big into cooking around here, so we do a lot of kitchen analogies for drums, and this is another opportunity to say, again, like, go by degree, go gently, taste the cooking over time, test it out a little bit, make sure you're going in the right direction. Don't overspice, don't overshoot what you're doing. Take time, listen really hard, educate your ear, and realize that, again, there's no right and wrong here. It's just about figuring out what you need and then knowing how to get it. Now, my favorite part about what we did today was unexpected, and it turned out that, these are my toms. These are from my touring kit, and I've never actually sat down and tested out intervals on them at all. I tune them, and I tune them in the room just to do the sound I need, and then that's the end of it. But the fascinating thing about today that I discovered is that I routinely tune the smaller tom at a different interval between the heads than the floor tom because they're wildly different dimensions. Never mind that the diameter is different. Also, one of them is square and one of them is more shallow than it is across. And so now I have a sense of what a fourth is here. I have a sense of what a half step is here. And that means that I have options and I can remember these things. Now we have a video where we did it. And this is exactly what I was hoping to give to the viewers. And we got it for ourselves here at the same time, which is a wonderful fallout of getting to experiment with things like this for everybody. So the takeaway from that is that you shouldn't feel like if this is a fourth, then this has to be a fourth. It's about understanding each drum, and the more drums you have, the more subtlety there can be in there, especially when you're talking about jumping from a little rack tom to a really big floor tom. Now, one of the things that we're really steering into this season is myth busting, especially in the context of conspiracy theory kind of thinking, which essentially what we're talking about here is having a conclusion and then looking for evidence to support that conclusion rather than experimenting and coming to a conclusion, scientific method. This is a perfect example of that. I have no idea what interval I tune my toms to on a given day, on a given gig. I tune them to sound good to the room. I could keep track of that and it would be useful information, which is essentially what we did today. But the end game is the point, not I'm going to tune unison because that's what so-and-so does, or these have to be a half step and a fourth because last week a half step and a fourth sounded really good. As soon as you change the heads, it's all shot and you got to try other things again because even broken in heads are going to behave a little differently than heads fresh out of the box. This is exactly why we tend to push back on the idea of specific pitches as a prescription or any kind of device with settings and numbers that might tell you what somebody else tunes their drum to, because that's not giving you all of the rest of the information, the room you're in, the type of heads, the type of sticks, the type of drums, the edges on those drums. There's way too many variables for us to say, this is what you should do, and that's the end of it. We want you to educate yourself, and that's what we're trying to do for ourselves here every day that we do this, and bring us further away from this idea of right and wrong and prescriptions and into using our ears to make a sound, because at the end of the day, that's what we're trying to do, whether we're playing by ourselves or playing in a band. So we would like to pose a challenge here, which is try this out on drums you have for two reasons. One, to learn about your drum, learn what it likes, learn what it doesn't like, go through some intervals. And secondarily, it's an opportunity to work on ear training, just musical ear training, learning intervals, learning how to identify them, learning how to tune your drum to an interval. That's really challenging, even if you're really good at it. And this can only help us both in music and in getting sounds out of our drums as quickly as possible so that we can get down to playing them, which is why we have them in the first place. If you like what you saw and heard today, please consider joining the Patreon and subscribing so that we can get more episodes like this out to you. It is the main way that we have connection to our audience. It's the main way that we finance our time that it takes to make these, and it is a considerable amount of time. It's a small team here. There's two of us, and we care about this a lot. So follow the link below, have a look at everything on there. There's a lot of additional footage. There are extra series, a lot of exclusive content over there that we're making all the time, right alongside everything that you see here on the channel on YouTube. And additionally, please like, comment, subscribe, and let us know what you do with intervals on your toms or on your snare and bass drum. We're fascinated by intervals. They make music for us, and we're definitely going to spend some time with our own drums here, seeing what it is that they actually like.